Hey everybody, this is Pooka and welcome to the second episode of Poké Center, your home for Pokemon TCG news, tournament results, and more. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing the first week of state championship results. There were a lot of big tournaments this weekend, so we'll see what decks won and see if there are any surprises. And also got some news on some new promos that are coming out soon, so stay tuned, it's coming up here on Poké Center. Alright everybody, the first weekend of state championships is in the books. We have some winners determined, and we'll get to see what decks came out on top. Now we had 15 state championships happen in this first weekend here in the US, and then I also have results from 2 in Canada and 1 in Mexico, so plenty of stuff to look at. Now going into this first weekend, there were 3 clear favorite decks that were expected to do well at these tournaments. The first one would be the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck that won the European Challenge Cup, and then the second one would be probably the most popular deck in the format, which would be the Zekrom Electric deck, and the third one, of course, would be Durant, which is widely considered one of the easiest decks to make, so it's always popular as well. Now, if you take a look at the results, they really went as planned. With 9 victories, the Zekrom Electric deck was the most successful deck, also the most popular deck, so no surprise there. People love playing that deck. It's not too expensive to make, besides if you want to play Mewtwo EX, which most decks do. That's really the only expensive card in the deck. So that was the most successful deck over the weekend. It won 9 state championships. No real surprise there, but there you have it. And then the second place deck with 6 victories would be the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck. The same deck that won the European Challenge Cup. Just uses Celebi Prime to power up your Mewtwo or your Tornadus, and just another deck based around big basic Pokemon, trying to pummel your opponent early on, and that seems to be the theme of the format so far. Now in third place, still no surprise, it's Durant with 2 victories, not nearly as many victories as the other decks, but still won 2 state championships. So mostly there were no surprises. Those were the big 3 decks, and those won almost all the state championships except for one, and that would be Virginia State Championships, which featured a Terrakion deck winning the entire event. Now when I say a Terrakion deck, you might think, oh, maybe it plays Electrode, maybe it plays Mewtwo, maybe Terrakion's just like a tech. But no, this deck was literally just 4 Terrakions. No other Pokemon, just Terrakion. 4 Pokemon. It's probably the simplest deck we've ever seen win an event. I can't recall a deck with 4 basic Pokemon ever really winning any notable tournament, but there you have it. Just Terrakion won the Virginia State Championships, actually defeating our own Michael Premwat in the finals. It was Curran Hill who was piloting the deck, and it just keeps attacking with Terrakion. It uses Experience Share, so when your first Terrakion gets knocked out, the next one gets an energy, and basically you're just doing 90 damage every turn, taking advantage of how many lightning decks are in the format and how many Zekrom Electric decks are played, because those decks are all weak to fighting, and Terrakion happens to be fighting, and it's got 130 hit points and does a lot of damage. So that certainly was a strange result that we saw, but I'm glad to see a little diversity in the format. Good to see someone thinking outside the box. Even if it was a really simple deck, it's cool to see something besides the big 3 decks win. So those were your winners for the weekend. And overall the event, or the outcomes were not too surprising, but that Terrakion deck really made people scratch their heads a little bit and wonder, what's that all about? Now it's interesting to look at the winners, but also we can take a look at the broader results, which would be the top 4 finishers from each event. Now I tallied up all the results. If you want a complete list of what did well at state championships, visit our website, thetopcut.net. We have a list of all the top 4 finishers from state championships from the first weekend, and we'll have that from next weekend as well. Try to update that as soon as possible. But for the first weekend, no surprise, the Zekrom electric deck, well, just electric decks in general, took 31 top 4 finishes over the weekend. That is by and far the most popular deck, the most successful deck. 31 top 4 finishes. The next highest finisher is 19 with the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck. So those clearly are the top 2 decks in the format. And then we had the Durant deck with 10 top 4 finishes as well. So that's clearly still around. And surprisingly, this new solo Terrakion deck took 4 top 4 finishes throughout the country, and in Canada as well. There was 1 top 4 finish with the Terrakion deck in Canada as well. So this deck somehow caught on at some point. You know, it's not really a deck we've heard of in the competitive scene until now. Interesting to note that 2 of these Terrakion decks did feature some Landorus as well. So just decks based around big fighting Pokemon, and really just trying to take it to those Zekrom electric decks, which clearly are the most popular decks. So the Terrakion, sometimes featuring Landorus, these decks clearly are a counter to the most popular deck in the format, which is the Zekrom electric deck. Now, people have been asking me for deck lists for this Terrakion deck, and you know, I don't think it's too complicated. We don't really post lists here on the Top Cut. We don't really agree with that. We're just here to share results and news. But, I mean, I can tell you that the Terrakion deck did revolve around EXP share and really just ran a lot of trainers and supporters and energy and not too many Pokemon. So it's not too difficult to build a deck. You could probably do it yourself. So, yeah, I mean, interesting results that such a simple deck could do so well at state championships. Who would have thought that with all the hype around Mewtwo, Celebi, Electric, that just a deck with Terrakion comes around and really surprises everybody. So, still overall, the most popular deck, Zekrom Electric, won the most states, had the most top 4 finishes, and then Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus, the second most popular, won the second most states, had the second most top 4 finishes, so no surprises at all. For the most part, everything is playing out as planned. And of course, Durant still hanging around with 10 top 4 finishes and 2 victories at states. So you're really just seeing everything as normal. You know, at state championships, there were no Typhlosion Reshiram decks that won. There were a few that made a top 4 finish, but no Typhlosion Reshiram decks won. We did see a few strange decks make the top 4 as well, but really, standard results plus Terrakion. So, it'll be interesting to see how the metagame develops. For the second week, we'll see if people catch on to this Terrakion deck. We'll see if people start to tack more Tornadus into their Zekrom electric decks, or see if the Terrakion deck can survive past week 1. Certainly it won by being a surprise deck in the first week, so we'll see if it has any sustainability, and we'll see if it's actually a deck that can last, or if it's just one that was kind of flash in the pan. It worked once, but now that people know about it, they can counter it, and we'll move on, and everything will go back to normal. So that's what you have to look out for the second week of state championships, which will be coming up this weekend. And good luck to everybody going to those. Hopefully we'll see some cool new decks pop up, and we'll have those results for you as they happen this weekend. Speaking of Landorus, PokeBeach.com revealed that there will be a new set of promos coming out in April, titled the Forces of Nature Collection. This is a box set that will include a full art version of Landorus, and also some alternate forms of Tornadus and Thundurus. So you get all 3 in this big box. Comes with a few packs as well, so that's something cool and new to look out for. Always interesting to see when we get different arts of cards. And it was a little strange that we had a full art Tornadus and Thundurus, but no Landorus. So Landorus finally getting some love. He's got a full art version. And of course, this is a simple way for you to access Thundurus and Tornadus if you need those for your decks. Of course, Thundurus is featured in a lot of the Zekrom Electric decks, and so is Tornadus. And Tornadus also featured in the Celebi Mewtwo Tornadus deck. So this is going to be a great resource for any competitive player. Simple, easy to access cards that are playable. We're starting to see more and more of these tins and promos, these box sets that include playable cards, and this is a step in the right direction. Nobody likes paying $50 for, let's say, a certain card that everybody needs to use in their deck. So anytime a box like this comes out, it's cool for the players, so you don't have to spend a bunch of money trying to get your playable cards. So look out for the Forces of Nature collection in April. I'm sure everybody will be looking forward to that. Alright, that's going to wrap up the second edition of Poké Center. Hope you enjoyed the show, but if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, please leave any comments you have down in the section under the video. We take every suggestion into consideration. We want to know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, because we always want to improve and make our product better for everybody. Now, I do want to add a question and answer segment to the end of every show. I don't have any real questions this week, so I'm not going to be able to do that for this episode, but for next week, if you have any questions, please send an email to ttcpokecenter@gmail.com, and I'll take some questions and I'll answer them at the end of next week's show. So, I just want to have a way to interact with everybody and just add a little segment at the end of every show. Also, this weekend at State Championships, we will be attempting to stream live from the State Championships. I will be at the Wisconsin State Championships. Our other members will also be at various different state championships, so stay tuned for that. Pay attention to our Facebook and Twitter pages, which are Top Cut Pokemon, and we'll provide updates on whether or not we'll be streaming, and you can watch that on our stream page, which is twitch.tv/thetopcut. Also, check out our site, thetopcut.net. We put all of our updates on there as well. So, pay attention to that. If you're not going to be able to go to any state championships this weekend, at the very least, you can watch some live Pokemon TCG action from state championships. So, that'll be it for this week. Thanks everybody for watching. This has been Poké Center, and I'll see you next week.